The entire plywood tank idea was based off needing a bigger aquarium for my freshwater stingrays, who are going to get massive. I went to Home Depot after watching too many of Joey's videos. King of DIY Joey, look him up. He's got great content. He did this way before me and has a lot more experience and goes into a lot more detail about the specific cuts and all the supplies you are going to need throughout the process. Also, quick pro tip, if you can make most of your wood cuts outside, you should take advantage of that. Now I happen to have most of the equipment on hand already, so I didn't need to purchase new skill saws or anything like that. However, if you don't have those types of tools at home or to your disposal, you are going to have to spend a lot more money up front before starting this project. Alright guys, it's all coming together. Finally, got the plywood just yesterday from Home Depot. That was a nightmare. But still got a few cuts to make. The basement is a mess, so I apologize for that, and it's gonna get even messier now that I'm putting this plywood tank together down here. But I have also, if you noticed, the glass. All right, we got the glass as well from a 125-gallon tank, so it's about a ½ inch thick. But I'm getting extremely excited to build this tank. Now, why am I building this tank? I have 2 freshwater stingrays. I want 3. I have 2 females, and freshwater stingrays get large. They get big. And I don't want to drop $3,500, $4,000 on a brand new glass tank right now. So I'm trying this out, and I am going to be following the king of DIY, himself, Joey's videos, his video series to be specific on how to build a plywood tank. So this should be fairly interesting coming from a guy who has never made a plywood tank in my life. Now, I do have a minimal construction background. I got out of that as soon as I could. RIP to everybody who hates their lives in construction right now. But I decided I want to enjoy my life. But luckily, while I was in construction, I did pick up a lot of tips. So it's not like I've never picked up a screwdriver before. It's not like I've never picked up a hammer before. So there is a little bit of experience on my part that I'm confident will go into helping me build this tank to an extent. Building houses and helping to build buildings is very different from building a plywood aquarium, and I have zero experience when it comes to waterproofing. So this should be very interesting. I'm going to try to film as much as I can for all of you, just so you can see the struggle I go through. And this will be a video series. This is not going to be just one long video. I'm going to try to cut it down, edit it out to specific videos. So obviously today, I'm going to primarily focus on creating the shape of the tank itself. I have a few more cuts, but after that, we are going to be wood gluing and we are going to be screwing. All right, so stay tuned. That was a hard cut to make. Took a skill saw and a sawzall, but it ended up being pretty perfect. Here you're going to be seeing me mostly apply the wood glue to the structure. There was nothing really too complicated about that, just very messy for the most part. Using 1¼ inch deck mate screws, they've been working extremely well throughout the build. No issues with them whatsoever. I will tell you though, don't underestimate how many screws you will need to use. At that point, I had only had 1 box of screws, and really, at the end of it all, I have been using at least 4 or 5 for the whole build. There I am screwing. I eventually changed to an impact driver just because my DeWalt screwdriver was acting up on me. I am putting the back portion on. Now keep in mind that the tank is flipped upside down. I did this similar to how Joey did, which is starting the build upside down so you can put the bottom on. And you're about to see me do that. Perfect. Lining the bottom up, making sure it fits, putting the piece of wood underneath, and you're going to see me go around the whole outside perimeter with the wood glue. Slide that piece of wood out. Perfect. It was nice and snug, not a whole lot wrong with my measurements on the bottom portion at least. All right, everybody, it is Monday. Over the weekend, I was just working on basically making the tank's shape itself. So we got it all, screwed in. I need to still build the frame, which you're gonna see some video of today. I needed to pick up some extra screws. You go through a lot of screws on this project. Some of the things people won't tell you about. So I got some more 1¼ inch deck mate screws. I also picked up some sandpaper, 60 grit, and also I think it's 150 grit as well, just because we are going to be sanding things down, trying to make things look a little bit nicer. But the measurements, going back, nobody will tell you this typically in the videos, but again, this is a newbie, never made a tank in my life. Measure twice, cut once, definitely. I had to make an additional Home Depot trip just yesterday because the bottom of my tank was cut incorrectly. I did not account for, which, newbie mistake, I did not account for the additional 3/4 inch. So, and I have pictures that I will show as well. But yeah, a few mistakes, nothing huge, nothing that I cannot come back from. To be expected bumps in the road during this process. Even in the simple stages, the just gluing, the drilling. I've learned that in Joey's DIY videos, he has a lot of clamps going on, and I did not invest in the clamps necessarily. I have a few smaller DIY, or not DIY, excuse me, but DeWalt clamps that have been helping me with my cutting process, but the clamps aren't big enough to hold the wood tight while I screw. So you see me in a lot of these videos pressing my body against the wood, holding things together, trying to do too many things at once. So if you have a partner to help you during this process of making the tank, it will help. And if you are doing it alone, like a lot of you probably will try to do, including myself, obviously, invest in some big clamps to hold the wood while you are drilling, and it will also make it not so messy with all the glue, because the wood glue gets everywhere. It took me 24 hours to get the wood glue off my hands and nails. So going into today, the frame will be made, it will be cut, some additional cuts need to be made, and also the sanding will start, so stay tuned. Okay, there you notice I've flipped the tank up the way it should be. Did not do that on my own. Another thing to possibly invest in before you start this project, if you don't have them already, are sawhorses. You'll notice that I am using lawn chairs to prop the tank up. Maybe not the best decision in the world, but I knew these lawn chairs were made extremely well and that they'd be able to hold the tank's weight, at least for now. I don't plan on using that as my actual stand, even though that would be fairly interesting. Here I am actually starting to put the frame of the tank around. And I cut out a lot of this process, to be honest with you, just because it was pretty extensive. There were a lot of little cuts that had to be done, and it would have made this video even longer than it already is. The impact driver worked perfectly for my needs here, had plenty of strength, got all the screws in nice and deep into the wood where they needed to be. Was definitely more comfortable using the impact driver. Here you'll see, give a little wrap around of the entire tank after the frame was completed. Again, this took me about 3 days to accomplish, just using whatever spare time I had. I'd say it was probably around 4 to 5 hours. All right, it is currently Tuesday night. It's been a long couple days. I've really gotten this all done between Saturday to now. And I just learned, I just got a Amazon notification that my pond shield is coming actually as soon as tomorrow. So before I had known that, I had said I wasn't even gonna touch the tank tomorrow. But now if it comes tomorrow, I'm gonna of course have to lay the first sheet of pond shield down on this tank. Now I would just like to do a final overview of what I have gotten done at this point. This video is already a little bit longer than I want it to be. There will be a part 2 of me applying the pond shield and the fiberglass cloth and all that good stuff that I've never done ever before. But let's go ahead and get to what has been done already, okay? Again, basement's a mess, gotta clean up. So I put, excuse my hand, frame around the top portion today. Reason I did that was because I felt like it would cover up some of the seams that were showing, especially on the side where I overlapped wood here. So I put this down, and it is a different type of wood than the rest of the plywood is. It is oak, and apparently oak splinters very easily, so you learn something new every day. Because every time I was driving the 1 1/4 inch screws through this oak, through these oak strips, they were splitting, and it was pissing me off. I covered it with wood glue, the few splits that it did have, but still, it did not look nice, okay? I gotta sand that down clearly, but it looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the frame, okay? So we got the frame going around this. The inside has yet to be sanded. I'm going to sand that down with 60 grit sandpaper before I apply my first coating of pond shield. Let's go ahead and go through the sides of the tank. Okay, one side nice and clean. You may notice I put bracing down the middle so we didn't have this big square gap. I actually may paint these gaps a different color than the actual tank itself, or I should say the rest of the tank. To be determined. Gotta stay put, can't think too far ahead here. And then you'll see the back, I also did a couple pieces of plywood for bracing, all right? So that should be enough. I'm comfortable with that. I feel safe with that. And then of course, this is the other side, identical to the right side. So not too bad. For a guy who's just been, you know, I would say probably I probably put in 4.5, 5 hours of just straightforward work. And with me being a personal trainer and just training really in the mornings and at nights, I'm lucky enough to have a pretty flexible schedule. But to those of you who work long hours during the week, this would be pretty hard to pull off. You'd kind of have to set it aside for weekends. And obviously you need to be patient when you're making this type of thing. You don't want to cut corners. But I'm lucky enough to have the flexibility in my schedule where I can kind of work on this almost every day, midday, afternoon. So I've been dedicating my afternoons to this. Anyway, gonna cut this video off here. It's already way longer than I wanted it to be, way longer than I intended it to be. Stay tuned for me putting my first coating of pond shield down on this bad boy.